Hello there, fellow Voyagers. My name is Aaron Moss. With me is my wife, Michelle Moss. And this is Voyagers Cast, a Headcast Network 20-episode maxi-series podcast where we look at the greatest time travel show of the early 80s, Voyagers. Joining us on this monthly expedition through time will be several of my podcasting friends and fellow Voyagers. Each month we look at an episode of Voyagers and give you our thoughts. So let's take a look and see where we're landing this time.
Green light, kid. We did it.
And welcome to Voyagers Cast, episode 17. As usual, I am one of your hosts, Aaron Moss, aka Brother Head. And as always, joining me is my beautiful wife, Michelle. Let's say hello.
I know, I was trying to think of something catchy to say in my brain. I was gonna do happy birthday.
Wrong president.
I know. That's why I was like, no, it's not gonna work. So
Yeah, wrong president.
hello, hello, hello.
Though we do have an episode of, at some point in the future, of
I know.
Quantum Leap.
That's
But anyways, and as I said, this is episode 17. So it's also episode 17 of Voyagers. Sadly, we're getting closer and ever so closer to the end of the series.
I know, I'm getting scared.
3 more episodes, plus probably a couple of special episodes to finish it off, and we'll be done with this journey. Took longer than expected, just due to life and holidays and sickness and everything else.
I'm kind of glad, because at least it's kind of strung it out. But yeah, no, we've kind of put this on a back burner a little bit. But
this should have been done, but that's the case. All my shows, all my shows get delayed. So, anyways, this is episode 17 for the third time.
Adulting sucks, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
It sucks. I just want to be a time traveler with my traveling pirate friend. Though I have to say, this episode, it even crossed my mind, he's not very piratey. He's too polite. Like, when I think of a pirate, I think of Captain Jack Sparrow. And he would be one hell of a kick in the pants to time travel with. But I think he'd mess everything up. But anyways, let's keep going.
We can talk about that, but let me go ahead and finish introducing this episode.
Sure.
This is called Destiny's Choice. This first aired March the 13th, 1983. And 13-year-old Brother Head was sitting there enjoying it. So.
And I was too busy, like what?
You were like
in kindergarten?
8.
Oh.
No.
8, 2nd grade?
You were.
No, it would have been 1st grade because I got held back.
You were 6.
Oh, so yes, kindergarten.
You would have been 6 or so.
Yeah. No, I would have been 1st grade.
So.
Because I did 4-year-old, 5-year-old kindergarten.
So, let's go and get a synopsis from this. Michelle, do you have a synopsis handy?
I sure do. This synopsis was found on Wikipedia. I really feel like those who know how to write need to go in and update this, because to me this is a very, very watered down version of the actual episode. But let's go ahead and just start with it, and then we'll just fill in the gaps. In Hollywood in 1928, the Voyagers end up on a closed set for the first sound film. When Jeff points out that the director is Franklin D Roosevelt, they know something is wrong in Tinseltown. They go to Roosevelt's home in Hyde Park, New York, 1924 to keep him from mailing out a script and get known in Hollywood. But his wife, Eleanor, is at odds with Roosevelt's mother, who is ashamed of his polio. Posing as a handyman, Bog helps Roosevelt use his crutches and convince him not to depend so much on others. This allows Roosevelt to make an important public speech, move up in politics, and eventually become president. First of all, I don't know if she's necessarily ashamed, but it's almost like she would have been a good candidate for someone who could have probably done Munchausen syndrome with her kid.
You're referring to her mother?
His mother.
Roosevelt's mother?
Yeah, she.
And I think it was shame, because when she was talking to Eleanor, she made a comment that, people's going to see him. But
I don't know if she's ashamed per se, or just I mean, yes, I do feel like, yes, I do think she was ashamed, but I think there was more to it. There was more of an underlining. It was her baby, and he had polio, and she's been, taking care of him, and she's pretty much babied him.
Right.
I think there's just more to it than just being ashamed.
I'm sure there's a lot more to it, but
so
to
me,
into
that's
the psychology or whatever of,
like I said, that's my favorite thing is psychology. But
his mom. But yeah,
I just think that she was worried he was gonna fail.
Right, and she didn't want him to fail.
She was
mother handing him too much.
She was definitely coddling him.
Talk about a helicopter parent.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect explanation. Good job.
Usually.
Okay.
It's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Not my story.
But anyways, so this episode, the Voyagers leap into Hollywood, and they again, as Michelle said, this synopsis kind of glosses over that whole, because I think it's not, bear with me, it's not important to the story, even though it was the first half of the show. Yes, because why don't you explain like the first part? Because you're better off with that stuff. Well, the first part, they leap into Hollywood, and I'll describe as we go along and we talk about it. I do like when they jump in and they leap into a courtroom scene where these guys come running with guns, and Jeffrey sees a beautiful girl on the stand.
And she's
afraid,
sobbing.
Yeah, she's sobbing. And so he leaps to her rescue, and they find out they're on a movie set, which I thought was hilarious. Yes, because, in the past, they've always dropped down into war zones and, all those things where they've always been in exactly what it seems to be. And this time they dropped into a courtroom and it was all farce. So that was interesting. And you did have an interesting point. And I thought the same thing when they dropped in. They're in a little courtroom. Again, it was a set, but it was like 3 walls of the courtroom. People were all in there. There was a judge and the girl and whoever else looking in that direction. No one mentioned anything about them dropping out of the sky. Yeah. Which is, no one's going to say anything with that? No. Okay. When did the special effects department get so good at what they do when it's just the first ever talkie movie, right? But yeah, so anyway, so the young girl, Miss Bliss, because I forget her first name now. Okay, hold on. Explain your whole Miss Bliss thing. Oh, well, okay, that's her name. Yes, but I'll get there. Okay. But yeah, so Miss Bliss, the young, I forget her name now. And every time I hear of Destiny's Choice, I think of Destiny's Child. Veronica Bliss. Bonnie Ursith. Ursith? Oh, there it is. Bonnie Ursith. There you go. Veronica's her first name. Okay, try this again. Veronica. For what I'm saying now. You were just going to start introducing her, really, to be honest with you. So the young lady that Bog thinks he's rescuing, she's an actress named Veronica Bliss. I refer to her as Miss Bliss, and I'll explain that in a minute. Played by Bonnie Ursith. And Miss Bliss has a speech impediment. She's got a lisp. She's got a lisp, and she's got a very soft and young-sounding voice. And apparently she was famous in regular movies. In silent films. Silent films, thank you. That's what it was called. In silent films, she was... Regular movies. Well, back then it was regular movies. Porn. Yeah, compared to porn. She wasn't into porn, but anyways... anyways. Your brain just shut off. Apparently she was a big time, at least in this universe, famous silent film star. And so when the director, Franklin Roosevelt, a.k.a. Wild Frank, was doing the first talkie, he pulled her in, and her voice isn't the best voice for the first talkie film, I guess. Because, again, she has a lisp and that soft, quiet voice, so... Well, with the speech impediment, no one, for the first talking movie, who's going to want a lispy actress? Was she talking? I wasn't even listening. No, I'm sorry. Can I ask you a question? Sure, you sure can. How the heck okay, so Franklin Roosevelt. Right, FDR. Right. In this. Right. Was very babied. Very kind of wussy. Right. But yet he was called Wild Bill? Well, this was years later, and... In the movies? What's that? Yeah. Years later? I'm so confused in the time frame then. I thought it was... Well, it was... They were in the talkie, 4 years later. I think it's 4 years later. So I wonder if maybe in the meantime his mom died, and he became Hollywood, and in a couple of years...
Are you
toughened up, if you will. Do what?
It's just that to me bothered me because I'm like, how is he Wild Bill Roosevelt?
Wild Frank.
Wild
Bill, somebody else.
How is he wild? But they mentioned a brother. Are we getting the two confused?
No. They mentioned a cousin, Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt?
Teddy Roosevelt was I want to say his cousin.
Oh.
Who was also a president.
Right. I knew that. Okay. So, but I'm really confused because I thought that him doing the movies came first before he became president.
In our world, he never did movies.
Right. Now I'm talking about in the time frame where they went to go fix everything.
So they landed in 1928. Where he was a film director.
Okay.
They let back to 1924 to get him not to send that script in.
Okay, I missed that part. Okay, I'm with it now. Now it's all making sense because I'm like, how is he Mr. Pussy Pants, but yet he's Wild Bill?
Yeah, see, from 1911 to 1913, he was a member of the U.S. Senate, the New York State Senate.
Right.
From 1913 to 1920, he was Assistant Secretary of the Navy. And then in the Voyagers universe, in 1921, he got polio.
Mm-hmm.
In both worlds.
Right. And
so in Voyagers universe, his mom coddled him, babied him, and he went on to become a director.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In reality, and what happened, I'm assuming at the end of, after Bog fixed everything, he went on to become a governor of New York in 1929, and then the 32nd president in 1933.
Okay. I'm with it now.
So that's his life in politics, if you will.
Right.
As he did some stuff in politics, and then he got polio, and that's where the timeline diverged, if you will.
I thought it was really interesting that Bog kept calling Jeffrey senator. Like, to me, that made me giggle. I liked that. I thought that was kind of funny.
But back to the first synopsis that the Wikipedia left out.
Yes.
So Veronica gets fired from her first talkie film because of her voice. And we find out that someone's been sending threatening letters to Roosevelt and causing problems on the set. Come to find out, was actually the security guard, Sam Withrop, played by Oliver Clark, who I've seen him in lots of things in the past also. He's a well-known actor. I'd say well-known. He did 86 movies and or shows. In fact, he was a Mystery Man, something you've seen.
Oh, who was he?
I think he was just a bit part, reverse psychologist. Like he was when they were doing the
interviews?
Which
is one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. My gosh.
He was one of the people there.
I need to watch that movie now again.
He was in the movie Ed.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of different things. He was in an episode of Full House as a principal. Life Goes On.
Golden Girls,
Dear John. Yeah, in the 80s and early 90s, he did a lot of
Rags to Riches. I know that one. Growing Pains.
And this is something Michelle had mentioned earlier. The security guard in here, Sam Withrop, it was discovered that he was the one that was actually sending the letters and trying to kill Roosevelt because he was in love with Veronica Bliss. And so he was upset when, that he realized that with her lisp, she wouldn't make it as a talkie actress. So he was trying to sabotage the film so talkies wouldn't take off. And she could stay a famous movie star.
When I first saw him, I knew exactly it was him. I mean, it's kind of obvious because, he was really goofy looking.
Right.
But I will say, she is one dumb broad in that part of in the show. Because...
I don't know if I'd say dumb. I'd say maybe naive. I wouldn't call her dumb, though.
I'm sorry, but...
She just sees the best in people and...
He was just trying to help me, but he was sending all these horrible...
And see, I don't know if the actress actually had a lisp.
I was wondering that because she did a good job with it.
I'll have to look and see. But before I go there real quick, finish my thought I was having.
Okay.
So he was a security guard that was in love with Miss Bliss. And when I was looking on IMDb to see where I've seen him before, because he looked familiar. I knew I've seen him in something. He was actually in a TV show called Good Morning, Miss Bliss. He played the principal. I think he was the principal or something, Mr. Gerald Belding. Good Morning, Miss Bliss, if you haven't heard of it, it was kind of a precursor to Saved by the Bell. Before Saved by the Bell, there was a short-lived series called Good Morning, Miss Bliss, starring an adult Haley Mills. And the first episode had a completely different cast than the rest of the show. And our psychotic security guard was in the original pilot. And apparently they replaced him with Dennis Haskins and changed the principal from Dennis Belding to Richard Belding. And that's when they brought in Mark Paul Gosselaar, Zach Morris, and Dustin Diamond as Screech, and Lark Voorhees as Lisa Turtle.
So Good Morning Miss Bliss came first before Saved by the Bell?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around.
No, Good Morning Miss Bliss was about, well, it was supposed to be focused on Miss Bliss, the teacher of a junior high, and they introduced Zach, Lisa, and Screech in that. And that lasted for a season or so.
No, okay.
And then they came out with Saved by the Bell after that. Where Saved by the Bell, they're in high school.
Right.
And then they had Saved by the Bell the college years, Saved by the Bell a new class.
Yeah.
And so forth and so on.
Everything.
But yeah, so I just, again, and I'm going off track again, but because that's what I do. But I thought it was funny that in here he was in love with Miss Bliss, but he was also after this, a decade after this, in a TV show called Good Morning Miss Bliss.
Yeah, that is very
just how my mind works and connects things. But back to our original conversation, I'm on Wikipedia looking. So again, Bonnie Urseth played Veronica Bliss. And I'm looking on Wikipedia, and it doesn't say anything about her having a speech impediment. And again, like Michelle said, if she didn't have a lisp, she did a great job acting.
Yes.
And again, so I think that's kind of why they skipped that portion of the storyline, because the storyline itself was basically getting Franklin Roosevelt back to being president. Was it right to do that? I don't know. I
just feel like they kind of just deleted or ignored that whole section, because without that, it really...
Well, and the way I think they may have looked at, again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong,
right?
But once Bog and Jeffrey put things back on track and got Franklin Roosevelt president, none of that first half happened.
Right.
If it wasn't for the fact that they lost the Omni right away, because when the security guard captured them, they took Bog's clothes thinking it was the wardrobe, and took the Omni thinking thought it was a prop. So they spent that. Jeffrey was trying to get the Omni while Bog was trying to save and find out who was trying to kill Roosevelt. If he hadn't lost the Omni, they would have left out right away, and that whole first half of the show wouldn't have happened. So I think that's why they kind of skipped it in the synopsis for it, because in the scheme of things, honestly, I enjoyed that portion of the show also. It wasn't relevant to the overall story arc. Because again, once they saved Roosevelt, not saved Roosevelt, but stopped Roosevelt from becoming a director and got him back into politics, that whole first half didn't happen. So, I mean, after they made the change, creepy security guy never tried to kill anybody.
But with that logic, then all the episodes are irrelevant, because...
Most of them, no, because most of the episodes deal with them trying to resolve the issue. Very few, because usually when they find there's something wrong and they find that it happened in an earlier time, they'll leap back to the earlier time and fix that first, if you think about it. So looking at our past episodes, the third episode, Bully and Billy, where they landed in 1898 during the Spanish-American War.
Right.
The Spanish was winning because Theodore Roosevelt and the Rough Riders weren't there. So once they found out that Roosevelt was killed by Billy the Kid, they immediately leapt back to 1880 to stop Billy the Kid from killing Roosevelt.
Okay.
When they were in the first 1898, they didn't do anything really there. Once they found out what they had to do, they left back. And that's usually what they do. If there's something going on and once they find out, they're only there long enough to find out what changed, where history went wrong. And then they usually leap right back and fix whatever was wrong. And then they'll go back and check and make sure everything was right. But in this case here, since the Omni was taken from Bog, they had to get the Omni back, and they figured while they were there, they would see if they could find out who was trying to kill Roosevelt. I don't know, maybe in case they couldn't get the Omni and they were stuck there, or whatever reason. Should Bog have spent so much energy and time trying to save Roosevelt instead of maybe spent that time getting the Omni? Maybe.
Well, that's why they were there.
What's that?
To help Roosevelt.
Well, no, not in the first time they landed.
Oh, yeah.
Because again, if they let back and they stopped them from ever being there.
This whole timey-wimey thing has got my brain all just...
So so the first half, I enjoyed it. So let me ask you this.
Okay.
Did you enjoy that first half? The whole
with the actress?
Hollywood, yeah, with the actress in the Hollywood and the creepy security guard and all that. Did you enjoy that portion of the show?
I liked her story. I liked when they went to her house and like all of that. To me, it was fine. It kept me interested more than the NASA show, the nonsense.
Okay, well then that's my question. Because even though it was unneeded, because again they wiped that timeline out, it was still enjoyable to watch.
Absolutely, but see, to me, they put so much time of the episode with her. Even at the end when they circled back and then she was a caterer instead of an actress. And now that I'm thinking about it, so I guess that first part was actually needed because of that ending. Last, yes. Because we let back in. They should have put it in the synopsis somewhere. There should have been a mention of her. Right. No, and again, that's why I'm trying to work it out, because I could see where they were going with it with that synopsis. But, and again, the whole... If they didn't have that first part, then they wouldn't have had that last line. And it was just like a line or two catching up and just basically letting us know what happened to her in reality. Right. So in reality, since Roosevelt never became a director, she never became famous. She never started acting, and she was a caterer the entire time. Well, then they got rid of Creeper, Mr. Creeper. Right, that has nothing to do with her as far as her career. Well, yeah, it does, because he friended her, and he fed her, and... he helped her get into the movies and all of that. Like, that whole story was that the security guard was the one that helped her and let her cry on his shoulder and blah, 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 and all of that. So, yeah, no, I think a lot had to do with Franklin Roosevelt being there because, again, in the new timeline, I'm sure the security guard was still there as a security guard. I think it was just the perfect storm having her there. Or, having all three of them involved. The stars aligning. Yes, made her become an actress. You pull one of those stars out, and she stayed a caterer. And they kind of circled with the catering thing because she had made that chili, and they were like, oh my gosh, this is the best chili. Yeah, she made chili for them at home or whatever, and then, at the end, they had the chili again. Right. And I was looking online trying to figure out if Bonnie had an actual lisp or not, and I can't find anything on the internet itself that says she did. So you would assume probably not, because it would show up somewhere. But what I did find was she was on an episode of Tattletales with her husband. So I played that so me and Michelle could listen to it. And no, she does not have a lisp. So back to your earlier statement, then she did a good job of portraying someone with a lisp. Yeah, no, she did a good job. So like I say, we spent, we did talk a little more than the synopsis did about that section, but again, which I'm glad, because I feel like she needed I think she should get some kudos. Yeah, no, definitely. For her, not only for her acting, but I feel like that character helped the story go full circle. Yes. And I think her, because of that time frame, the Omni was taken, and then the what are they called? Tattletales or Tater Tots or Tater Tots? Tater Tots. No, Tater Tots. Tater Tots was in our role playing game. Terror Tots or Terror Kids or Terror Tot or something like that. The Brats. That was annoying to me. Like, they could have just left that out. I didn't care for that. I mean, I get that they helped Jeffrey or whatever, but I don't know. No, I agree with you. I thought that was just a little bit too much. I found them annoying. I think they were trying to go for more of a comical view on that, and I think the writers missed it. And it also, I guess it was also there to expand the episode, because if it was just Jeffrey, he would have got the Omni and got back to Bog quicker. So this expanded the episode so they could continue more with the Bog trying to find out who was trying to kill Roosevelt. And I really feel like Bog gives up the Omni way too easy. Like, they're like, oh, it's part of the props. He could have been like, no, it's my watch from my grandfather, or I don't know. I just felt like he was just like, oh, God. He reminds me of Goofy in a way. Well, he didn't say, okay. They took it from him. He could have fought back harder, because again, I'm sure he could have taken out those two guards. Oh, easily. But yeah, I don't know of the best way they could have done that, because for the story they needed to remove the Omni for a while, but... Well, it could have been locked up. And then when the explosion, when the bad guy set the dynamite, I was like, whoops, there goes the Omni.
I didn't figure the Omni was blown up at that point because that would end the show. We still got a couple more episodes.
But I'm just saying, like, in my mind, I was like, whoops, there goes the Omni.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I did find those little kids annoying also. And I was trying to see if I could find something that would say if they're supposed to be somebody or if the guy that stopped them is supposed to be somebody. But I'm not. Like
a reference.
Yeah. But I'm not finding anything offhand that says who any of those people were that I should care about.
It was, thinking like, the Apple Dumpling Gang or something.
Maybe. It's a good possibility. I don't know. Okay, there you go. The Terrible Tots. And I'm looking
Our Gang. So I was close.
I'm looking at IMDb. And yeah, the Terrible Tots film series is a reference to the Our Gang films, which now that they mention it, it makes sense. And see, I was looking online because they keep reference when Boggs shows up in his pirate outfit. They keep mentioning that, you must be working on that pirate film. So I was looking to see what pirate film. And IMDb says it's When a Man Loves. Apparently that was being filmed at the same studio at the same time from 1925 to 1929. They're working on When a Man Loves. And I was just looking online. I saw several films in that time frame. I wasn't sure which one it was. So I wouldn't even looked at it because I didn't go back to 1925. I was looking at 1928, 1929. In fact, it's not even listed on. I did a search for pirate films and television series. And yeah, When a Man Loves isn't even on this list. I never would have found it. I thought maybe because it was 1928. So I was thinking 29. It was 1928. So there was a couple of films out in that time frame.
Yeah.
The First Kiss, Modern Pirates, The Beautiful Corsair. So yeah, I did like 1929 when it came out or so. Delightful Prince, or Delightful Rogue, The Pirate of Panama, Hell Harbor. I thought maybe it was one of those. But IMDb says it's When a Man Loves, which lists as 1927, which would have been before. But I guess maybe it was on the same lot. But it was a lot more famous. That John Barrymore, which if I'm not mistaken is Drew Barrymore's dad.
Yes.
Was in it. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that's what it was or not, or if it's just they're guesstimating because it was the same studio. But anyways, I did like they kept referring to him, as being in that pirate movie. Anyways, back to this episode. So do you have anything else to say about the Hollywood section of this episode?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I felt bad that she was about to buy a house and she lost, she didn't seem to be too bothered that she lost her job. She was like, oh yeah, I dreamt I was going to be in this house and I saw it and blah, blah, blah. And
she's a very chipper, very, very glass half full type of gal.
Well, I don't think her glass was very full, if you catch my drift. If you know what I'm saying.
If you know what I'm talking about over here.
Yeah.
Give her half glass. Anyways, if you know what I'm talking about. Jeez. I don't know. I didn't come out right. Anyways, moving on.
Please.
And one thing I did not like is and I don't remember if they did this in the original airing or if this was for the DVD and reruns of it and whatnot. But at the beginning of the episode, when they show what's going to happen this episode,
mm-hmm.
and that may be clips from the end of the show when they say next week on. But in there, it kind of ruins the surprise because when they leap in, you don't know that Roosevelt's the director until they're dragging him away, and then Roosevelt sets his megaphone thing down on the ground and says Roosevelt on the side.
Right.
And it's kind of like, what the heck? But before the beginning credits, they show what's going to happen, and they show that scene. In fact,
yep.
So I don't like when they ruin it because again, that was supposed to be kind of a surprise. Oh, what the heck?
What other show does that? There was another show that I wouldn't look at the.
I think Lost used to do that too.
I think that's what it was. I think
Lost used to do that. The next week on Lost,
there was one where it was like the person was gonna die, like that. Always. Oh, it was just like I don't know, probably reality TV or something. But like they were like, yeah, it was so. I think it was So You Think You Can Dance, where they would show
someone's gonna die. I really need to watch that. People can die on that.
No, but it would be right. So. For instance, the way my brain works is I know. For instance, on the internet, someone said that there was going to be a death in the show, but they didn't say who it was. What I would do is I would look at the intro, and I even do this for Quantum Leap a little bit, the original, that I'll look at the intro and be like, oh, I haven't seen that yet. So, or Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is a good example. I haven't seen that episode yet, and even though no, it's a bad example. Some show, I can't remember what it was, but I would look at the intro and be like, I haven't seen that yet, so I know that character's safe. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I know, yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't like when they do montage-y intros like that.
Well, like for another kind of example of this was Beverly Hills 90210.
Never watched it.
Brian Austin Green started off on that. And in the first couple of seasons, he had a friend. And then he started hanging out more with the main group. And that friend drifted by the wayside. And we didn't see him on promos or anything. And then there was one episode where, it was the big teaser was someone's going to die. And on the cast photo, they had this one kid on there that hadn't been on for like a couple of seasons. Like, oh, wait, he's going to die.
Yep. He's the red shirt.
Yeah, because he hasn't been on. Oh, he's on the poster finally. Oh, okay. Someone's going to die. They re-included this kid, which doesn't always work. As I've talked about before with Star Wars, when Episode 7 came out.
Oh, yeah. They got you good.
I went to the, when Star Wars Episode 7 came out, I went to the local theater and did a marathon of the first 6. And there they had cup toppers and popcorn buckets, and everything featured only the new characters, except for they also included Chewbacca. So it's all new characters plus Chewbacca. And somewhere we heard that someone was supposed to die. I forget where we came of that at, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be Chewbacca that's going to die because they're promoting him with all these new characters. Spoilers, it wasn't Chewbacca, but yeah, because what it was, I watched the first 5 movies there, and Michelle's company, they had a special screening of the 7th episode. So
they rented out a whole movie theater. They had all the free snacks and popcorn. You got to bring your family, depending on how many tickets. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah. So I left the theater I was at to go across town to the theater Michelle was at, so I could watch episode 7. So I missed episode 6, or at least most of it on the big screen. But as I'm going over, or did I ride over with you? Did you pick me up? No, I had my own car.
You met us there, I think. I brought Tim with me or something.
I forget if I was talking on the phone or maybe it was right before it started. You were asking me, well, was anyone going to die? And I'm like, well, I think so. Who is it? Well, I don't want to spoil it for you. I don't know, but I don't want to spoil what I know.
Don't like not knowing.
I want to know. So I'm like, well, I think Chewbacca's going to die. And I explained to Michelle, well, this was at the theater I was just at. Like I told you guys, they had all these just the new characters and everything, the toppers, all new characters, and Chewbacca. So I thought for sure Chewbacca was a goner. That plus in the books, the extended universe novels, Chewbacca dies, saving Han's son, Anakin. So, yeah, I thought for sure that Chewbacca was going to buy it. And then when we're watching the movie and Han borrows his bowcaster, he's like, oh, I like this. I've never used this before. I'm like, oh, they're going to kill Chewbacca. He gave Han his weapon, and Han likes his weapon. Oh, they are going to kill Chewbacca. Oh. So yeah, when it turned around and we find out it's actually Han that gets it, I'm like, oh, I'm surprised. I guess I shouldn't have been, because I know Harrison Ford was always complaining that he wanted to die. He wasn't a big fan of the Star Wars movies.
What a jerk.
He wanted to die in episode 6, but they didn't. And I guess that's why he said the only reason he'd come back is they would kill him off. But yeah, I was surprised. So that's one of the times.
But we're getting off track on Star Wars.
But it all comes back to Star Wars. So to paraphrase and steal from Michael Bailey. That sums up the first part that the Wikipedia summary skips entirely. They sum up the first, and that takes up the first half of the show. Because I was watching, because I was curious. And yeah, they didn't have the Omni for the first half.
Right.
And they summarize it in 2 lines. So again, whether good or bad, I understand where they're coming from, but I agree with Michelle that it kind of, because again, that actress did a fantastic job in what she was doing. But
yeah,
in the scheme of the episode and in life, in the timeline, that timeline is really not important. So then they go to Roosevelt's home in Hyde Park, New York, to try to keep him from mailing out a script. And again, they split up once again. Jeffrey tries to stop the script from being delivered, and Bog goes and basically harasses Roosevelt into
That was
walking.
some fantastic writing. I'm not gonna lie. Like, usually, I mean, I enjoy the show, don't get me wrong. It's a great show. But there's just every once in a while, they'll hit just the sweet spot.
Right.
And to me, he did that also when I think it was Abraham Lincoln, when they kind of like bait tricked them when he was talking to the mom and he's like, oh yeah.
It was Washington.
Was it? It was Washington, not Abraham.
It was George
Lincoln.
Washington.
Yeah.
They split their forces and.
Yes. I was like, that was brilliant. This again was along those lines of just being comically written well. It just. He was so sarcastic. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that where our son got his lessons
Yes.
from? Was Bog? That's his new name. It's not Captain Asshole. It's Captain Bog. Like, he's Bog. Oh my goodness.
Bog, because Roosevelt, his mom's been babying him basically since he got polio and lost the use of his legs. His wife Eleanor is trying to get him to continue life, but his mom is basically overriding her and
making him bedridden and not getting out of bed or anything.
And Bog comes in, they're talking about because one of his friends, I forgot the guy's first name now, Hal, wants him to come in and introduce and nominate him for president. And his mom's talking him out of it, and she calls and tells him, no, well, you can't do it.
Right.
And meanwhile, Bog's like, I guess you can't, I guess you are useless. Well, I'm not useless. Well,
you're laying in bed.
You've been laying in bed for, however many years. And he's like, well, help me get to my wheelchair. And so, Bog pulls the wheelchair right next to the bed and just walks away. And Roosevelt's like, you're going to help me? He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize the polio took the use of your arms also.
Yeah. Which was a great line.
Yeah. But yeah, that was... And he just kept doing things like, he went to polio take your use of your arms too. And so Roosevelt scooted over and got on the chair on his own. And, well, I can't do it from a chair. He's like, how about these crutches? Well, I'm not going to stand on those. And he made some other smart ass remark to him. And next thing you know, Roosevelt's out there on the crutches.
It's like, you can do this.
And then like when Roosevelt's mom comes out, he's like, no disrespect intended. But if you say a word, I'm going to lock you in the maid's closet or something like
butler's
that.
Pantry.
Butler's pantry.
Pantry, I think it was.
Yeah, I'm going to lock you in the butler's pantry. She's like, okay. Like Michelle said, that was great writing and great acting on John Eric's behalf. I thought he did a great job in the smart-ass delivery and just the smart-ass delivery and just the way he delivered the lines. I thought was fantastic.
I agree. And
then if you talk about that, as usual, they lead back to the original time, 1928, to see what's happening. They found out that Roosevelt wasn't the director. It was Alan Crosland. It was Al Jolson and the Jazz Singer, which was the first talkie movie in reality in 1927. Which, again, it's a little bit of an error, I guess.
Why?
Boy, if the Jazz Singer came out in 1927 and they were in 1928... then the Jazz Singer would have already been out and would have already been the first talkie. Roosevelt's picture wouldn't have been. Unless maybe in that reality, the Jazz Singer wasn't made. So maybe with Roosevelt being a director, maybe Alan Crosland, who directed the Jazz Singer, maybe for some reason he didn't either direct or it took him longer to get it out for whatever reason, which allowed Roosevelt to become first, even though in our reality, the Jazz Singer was out first. Again, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly type stuff. Michelle, any other thoughts on this episode of Voyagers? Anything you want to talk about?
No, I think we covered it all. I enjoyed it.
Much better than last episode?
Yes. Let's just not talk about that. That was the pig farmer episode for me. Like that was.
It's kind of harsh.
No, that was the truth.
I think it was kind of harsh. But anyways, I guess we're done for this episode. I guess we'll call it done here. Michelle?
So we only have 3 more episodes to go. I kind of am afraid to ask where we're going next. If you want to check the Omni and make sure we have a green light and where we're going next.
Okay, looks like we have a green light. You fan of boxing?
Not really. I like hockey.
I say hockey's boxing. Guys beating the crap out of each other. What do you think about President Jimmy Carter? You like him?
I think that's the president when I was born was Jimmy Carter.
Yes. You are correct. So you like I know you were a baby when he was born.
Yeah, I don't really know a lot about Jimmy Carter. I know that he was a philanthropist. I can't say that.
Yeah,
he built houses.
In fact, yeah, he was president the year you were born through 1981.
Yep.
And yeah, he still does a lot of working on houses and stuff.
And he's old.
It depends what you consider old.
He's old.
Depends what you consider old.
He was born in 1924. I thought he's dead.
He's 98.
Wow.
Yeah, he's still alive. He was born 1924 in Georgia. He's 98 years old. Wow. And yeah, last I heard, he's still out doing houses, and he's been married for 76 years.
That's amazing.
The longest married president. Also the third oldest living person to serve as a state leader. But anyways, that's Jimmy Carter. Do you like Jimmy Carter? That's where we originally came into this.
Like I said, I know he's a philanthropist, and I know he builds houses. That's what I know. And that he was the president when I was born.
Well, apparently at some point, Carter was on an airplane that was hijacked.
Huh.
We'll find out next episode what happens.
If you want to learn more about the Wright brothers, Eddie Rickenbacker, and the early days of flying, take a voyage to your nearest public library. It's all in books.
Thank you for listening. This has been Voyagers Cast, a proud member of the Headcast Network family of shows. All copyrights belong to respective owners, and no copyright infringement is intended or implied. We're just a huge fan of time travel shows, and Voyagers in particular. Be sure to join us monthly as we watch where Phineas and Jeffrey land next. And if you enjoy this show, check out the other shows on the Headcast Network. The first week of the month, we have Head Speaks and the Starbright Project. Head Speaks is where I talk about comic books, TVs, movies, books, anything geeky. The Starbright Project is where Michelle and I look at another great time travel series, Quantum Leap, and then we'll talk about it. The second week of the month brings you G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast, and this show, Voyagers Cast. Over on my G.I. Joe show, we look at the G.I. Joe comics and cartoons from the late 80s. The third week of the month, we drop both Task Force X and Retrospect to the 80s. Task Force X is a show that looks at the Suicide Squad and Checkmate books from the late 80s. Retrospect to the 80s, surprisingly enough, is a show where Michelle and I, and possibly some guests, look back at what we think is the greatest decade there was, the 80s. Finally, the fourth week of the month, I release the Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour and Bravo Team. Starman Manhunter is a show where I look at the Will Payton Starman and the Mark Shaw Manhunter books, both from the late 80s. Yes, I have a time period. Bravo Team is my sister show to the G.I. Joe team, or maybe brother show, where we look at anything else G.I. Joe related. We'll be back next month to join our friends Phineas and Jeffrey as they leap into, well, the unknown. Until then, remember, may your landings always be soft
And your lights always be green.